Are you a guy who's feeling lost in these menswear streets and wants to build a timeless wardrobe that turns heads? If you're not in agreement, then I want to link with you for a complimentary Step Up Your Menswear Discovery Call. In this informative 20-minute session, I'll dissect your current fashion choices and identify where you might be missing out on opportunities to enhance your style game, all while staying true to classic menswear principles. Whether you're a professional, a businessman, or simply someone seeking to upgrade your style game, the Step Up Your Menswear Discovery Call is tailor-made for you. Book a slot on my calendar today by going to I'mNotAGentleman.com and click on the Work With Me tab. Peace.
I'm Not a Gentleman is a production of ChaseandRider.com.
Now, as I was saying, the tie sits right below your face, but the closest to your face is actually the tie knot. So the first thing, you'll see guys wear really, really big tie knots. Like they have something to prove or they're hiding something, so they're compensating by having really big tie knots. The size of your head and the size of the tie knot should not be in competition with each other. So that's the first thing. And to make matters even worse, I've seen some tie knots where it's actually backwards. I forgot what it's called. Thank God it's not like I'm really trying to remember such monstrosities. Yo, what up? Welcome to I'm Not a Gentleman, the show designed to help you look stylish without following trends. I'm your host, Vladimir Riché from ChaseandRider.com, and your favorite menswear YouTuber's favorite menswear YouTuber. I've helped dozens of clients and hundreds of students and viewers feel more confident by looking their best and always making a great first impression. Welcome to episode 23 of I'm Not a Gentleman, aka the Michael Jordan episode. This is a special episode because this is the first episode of 2024. Damn, that sounds weird saying 2024 already. I guess it's something that I have to get used to. But yeah, man, we're really going to turn it up this year. I have a lot of good things in store for you guys, and I hope that you guys are ready, because this is going to be a big year for I'm Not a Gentleman. Today's episode is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and it's not shoes. You guys know how I feel about shoes, man. But this one is about the second subject that I'm most passionate about besides shoes, which are ties. I've spoken about ties plenty of times before, but this episode is strictly dedicated to ties, which is something that I've been looking to do for a while. And what better time to do it than the first episode of 2024? So as I always like to say, your tie is extremely important because it sits right below your face. So there are certain things that you can probably hide. Your tie is not one of those things. Your ties are always going to be noticeable because they're right there. And when you're speaking to someone, they're going to be looking at your face. So if you wear really nice ties and people are paying attention to the tie, they will be looking at your face also, because they don't really have a choice because the tie is going to be right there. Versus if somebody's really into your shoes, right? They're really paying attention to your shoes. They're not looking at your face. So that's why ties are very, very important. And that's why I put a lot of emphasis on wearing nice ties. With that said, man, sadly, I think only about 1% of men really wear nice ties. And that's something that I'm trying to change by bringing more light to it. Because the problem is, most guys wear ties that they get as gifts. So whether it's a Christmas gift, an anniversary gift, a Father's Day gift, yeah, Father's Day, that's a big one. A lot of ties get bought to be given as gift on Father's Day. And it's a nice gesture because, you know, all men can use a tie, but those ties be the most hideous ties, man. And it's not really the people's fault who are buying those ties. I mean, most guys don't really know anyway what's a nice tie, so I don't really expect for somebody else to really know. It's like me, for example. Nobody would dare to give me an ugly tie for my birthday because they see the way that I dress. So I can't blame the person that's giving the gift because they're probably already looking at ties that you probably already had. and they're basing it off of that. And when it comes to ties, you do have to put a little bit more thought into it. It's easy to walk into like a Marshall's. I don't know if you guys have Marshall's where you are. We have them in New York, or even a Kohl's, and get somebody a tie. And those ties are going to be extremely ugly. So that's exactly what happens. Guys get ties as gifts, and that's what they wear, as opposed to doing their research and see what nice ties they can get for themselves. So this is what we're going to discuss in this episode. Intro.
Back in that bag again. Whoa.
All right, so let's get right into it, man. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the 3 types of ties that I recommend that every man should have in their wardrobe. But before we get to the ties, though, I do want to talk about a couple tie mistakes that I see. And then once we cover those mistakes, then we'll get into the ties that I recommend. This is not really in any order, so I'm just going to spit them out. The first one is wearing ties that are too skinny. And I know that when you read GQ magazine and you're on the internet, this is what you see and you think it's cool. And I'm here to tell you that it's really not. Your tie should be proportional to your lapels. And if you're wearing skinny lapels, you should stop that too. Your lapel should be around 3.5 inches. Personally, my lapels are around 4.5 inches. But I'd say minimum 3.5 inches is where you really want to be, because it's going to look a lot better. As a man, it's really going to emphasize like your chest, your shoulders, as opposed to wearing them skimpy lapels. So if you're wearing wider lapels, then you should be wearing wider ties. They go hand in hand, but the problem is most guys are wearing skinny lapels and skinny ties, although I don't think that they're doing it on purpose as far as knowing that their lapels should be matching their ties. But you guys really need to chill with those skinny ties, man. They're not timeless, and they just date your whole look. And like I said, I know that's what you see in GQ magazine, but GQ has to sell magazines every month. So they can be giving you timeless advice, because what are they going to be talking about every month? So they have to tell you about trendy things. And me, I'm here to actually save you from that and save you money in the long run also, because you don't have to keep buying those things over and over again. What I recommend as far as the width of your tie, it should be around 3.25 to 3.5. Every single tie that I own is 3.5 inches. Personally, I wouldn't wear a 3.25 tie because I would feel uncomfortable wearing that tie. I've worn one once, and it was by accident because I thought it was 3.5. And while I was wearing the tie, I just felt uncomfortable because I was actually shooting a video, so I could see myself on the screen. I'm like, something is not right. And then once the video was over, I measured the tie and realized it was 3.25. Now, you might be saying 1/4 inch doesn't make a big difference. And you're probably right. But when we're talking about a tie, that's only 3.5 inches. 1/4 inch is noticeable, at least to me. And once again, it's probably because that's all I've been wearing since I've gotten into classic menswear. So therefore, as soon as something is not 3.5, I'm going to notice it. And that's what happened that time. I didn't notice it when I was putting it on, but I noticed it as soon as I was able to see myself. So my recommendation is your tie should be between 3.25 and 3.5. And that way you don't have to worry about having something that's dated. That's going to last you the rest of your life. The second mistake is wearing those cheap polyester ties. Like I was saying, man, there's really no way to really hide your tie. So wearing those shiny ties are not doing you any good, man. And I do understand that ties are expensive, but trying to cut corners by wearing polyester ties is just really not a good look. What I would recommend in that case, if you don't really want to spend money on your ties like that, because for good ties, you're looking at around $70 to start, I would say. So if that's not in your budget, it's cool. Then I would recommend that you probably go to a thrift store, and you should be able to find some good options for very cheap. But the answer is not wearing polyester ties. The third mistake that I see a lot of guys make is tying some really bad knots. Now, as I was saying, the tie sits right below your face, but the closest to your face is actually the tie knot. So the first thing, you'll see guys wear really, really big tie knots. Like they have something to prove or they're hiding something. So they're compensating by having really big tie knots. The size of your head and the size of the tie knot should not be in competition with each other. So that's the first thing. And to make matters even worse, I've seen some tie knots where it's actually backwards. I forgot what it's called. Thank God. It's not like I'm really trying to remember such monstrosities. But what are we doing, man? You're bringing attention to your face for all the wrong reasons. I recommend a 4-in-hand knot. That's what I tie every single time. Actually, probably 90% of the time. That's what I tie. I also use a tie knot called an old birdie. So it depends on if I remember or not. But most of the time, it's second nature. I tie a 4-in-hand knot. And a lot of time, guys will give me compliment about my ties and ask me how do I tie it. I don't think I'm doing anything special because 4-in-hand is pretty much what most of us in the classic menswear community, that's how we tie our ties. So I never really looked at it like I'm doing anything specific. But yeah, just a 4-in-hand knot, man. It's a simple knot to tie. It's not complicated. It's not like it's a double Windsor where you have to know all these steps. Very simple, man. So that's the third mistake. The fourth mistake, this one is really, really bad, is having ties with logos on them and thinking that you're really stylish. This one really has to stop. Like, you ever seen these ties with the Gucci imprint? What about the Burberry ties? Like the plaid? Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, what are we doing, bro? Like, seriously, man. It's like, I can understand if you're into street fashion and logos are a thing. I mean, I still think that's corny, to be honest with you, but I've done it, you know? So I can understand if that's what you're doing. But when it comes to tailored clothing, logos don't mean a damn thing. So when you're wearing those ties that has the logo of the brand on them, that's just extremely corny. So that's the fourth mistake. The fifth mistake, I hate this one with a passion. First of all, guys will wear some really crazy colored shirts, right? So you'll see orange shirts, you'll see some yellow shirts, you'll see some black shirts, you'll see some red shirts, some really, really bad shirts. And they'll double up on that by wearing ties, striped ties that has those colors in them. So you see a lot of burgundy shirts with ties that also has burgundy stripes. I mean, come on, man. We got to do a lot better than that. This is almost like when guys buy their ties and pocket square as a set. Matter of fact, that's exactly what it is. One day I walked into a Kohl's and I saw that all the mannequins had that look. Then I realized this is where guys are getting this from. They'll walk into a store and they'll look at the mannequin and they'll be like, I want this look. This is as lazy as it gets, man. Like I always like to tell people, dressing well should be fun. Life is hard, man, but dressing well should be fun. So when you're wearing a burgundy shirt and you're wearing a tie that has burgundy stripes, that's extremely corny, man. Of course, you can rectify that by not wearing those ugly colored shirts to begin with. That would go a long way. So I recommend white shirts, light blue shirts. Anyway, this is not even really about shirts, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. But if you weren't wearing those colored shirts to begin with, then you wouldn't be wearing those ties that are matching those shirts. That's the point that I'm trying to make. So that's the fifth mistake that I see guys make that really irks me. The sixth tie mistake that I see is a lot of guys don't even untie their ties at the end of the day. They just pull it enough so they can take it off and then they hang it that way. And next time they just put it back on already tied. That's crazy. I mean, if it's a cheap tie anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. Actually, it does matter because you should start building good habits. But you're already destroying your tie when you're not untying the tie and hanging it. so that the folds can fall off naturally. It's just lazy, man. And one thing that I always recommend to guys, when you are undoing your tie, instead of pulling out the skinny end, which is what most guys do, to just pull out the skinny end, is to undo the tie in reverse. So the way that you tie the knot, you just undo it. Because when you're pulling on one end, you're also not helping out the tie. And last but not least, the 7th tie mistake, this one is huge pet peeve of mine, is when guys don't dimple their ties. And you see that all the time, whether you're watching TV, whether you're just out and about. Yo, man, dimple your tie, bro. It's not that hard. It goes an extremely long way, too. It just shows that you care and you're paying attention to what's going on. You're just putting in a little bit of effort. You know, because we all can put a tie on, but is your tie dimpled? You know, and that's one question I get too. Like, how come you always have a nice dimple on your tie, like a perfect dimple? And trust me, it's not always perfect, man. Sometimes I have to tie my tie 2 or 3 times to get the right dimple. Always leave yourself a bit of time in the morning, because not every time is it going to come out the way that you really envision it. And also, the more you dimple your tie, the more your tie is going to form a memory. So the next time when you tie it, it should be a lot easier to get the right dimple. So those are the 7 tie mistakes that I see out there. There are more than that. And as you guys know, I don't really script what I'm going to be talking about. So those are the 7 that come to mind right now, but there are more than that. All right. So anyway, we got the mistakes out the way. So now let's talk about the 3 ties that I recommend that every man should own, or the 3 types of ties that I recommend that every man should own. The first style of ties are solid color ties. Those are going to be the easiest ties to pair with the rest of your outfit. And that's why when guys usually ask me, what's the easiest way for me to start stepping up my menswear? I always tell them to start with their ties, because it's one thing that's very easy to buy. Once you know what you're looking for, you don't really have to worry about trying them on. All you have to do is just pull the trigger, go online, see them, and just order them. Just make sure that they're the width that you're looking for. Like I was saying, I recommend 3 1/4 to 3 1/2, or even 3 1/4 to 3 3/4. Me personally, I stay at 3 1/2. They're one size fits all as far as the length. Most ties are around 58 inches. Of course, if you're a taller guy, you're like 6'3", 6'4", and above, you might want to have a longer tie, then you might have to custom made it. But for most of us, 58 inches is going to do us just fine. So solid color ties, you just set it and forget it. You don't have to really put a whole bunch of thought into it. The fabric that I recommend for solid color ties is grenadine, which is a silk that comes from Italy. And it's kind of a grainy fabric. So it does bring some visual interest to it, because when you're talking about a solid color tie, some might think that it's boring because it's just one color. So that's why I really love grenadine, because even though it is one color, for the most part, it does have a lot of texture to it. So it's not just like a smooth texture. As far as colors, I would recommend you start with black, and then navy, and then green, and then burgundy. Those colors are going to be very easy to pair with the rest of your wardrobe. And black is my favorite out of those 4. And that's because I feel like black goes with so many different color suits. Like I always like to say, I'm not into the monochrome look. So navy is really nice as well, but I also wear navy suits. So I wouldn't wear a navy suit with a navy tie. Like I would, but not with a solid color tie. I don't want to be wearing a solid suit that's navy and pair it with a solid tie that's also navy. You know, I feel like that's really boring. And once again, I feel like dressing well should be fun. If you're into black suits, personally, I'm not. But a black suit, a white shirt, and a black tie is still a really good look. Like, look at tuxedos, right? They're black. You wear a white shirt, and your bow tie is usually going to be black. So black on black is cool, but navy on navy, to me, is not cool. So that's why I didn't pick it at number 1. But a lot of guys would say navy is probably the ideal color to get, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? I just want to give you an explanation on why it's not mine. But I would still recommend it as a second choice. And then I'd say like a dark green and then a burgundy would be the options that I would recommend. So that's the first style of ties that I think that every man should have. It's very simple. You're getting dressed in the morning. You're not exactly sure which tie you want to wear. A solid color tie is a very easy choice, easy and safe choice. The second type of tie that I recommend are striped ties. Striped ties are still very formal, but they have a bit more character, obviously, than a solid color tie because most of the time they're going to come in multiple colors. Or sometimes it could be the same color, just different shades of that one color. For example, I do have my own tie in collaboration with a Clasu. If you didn't know that already, definitely check it out and get yourself one. The link will be in the show notes. It's called the intro tie, and it's 2 different shades of blue. It's a darker blue and a lighter blue. And they're in black stripes, which are thicker stripes. So I think that striped ties are very attractive. I don't have that many in my wardrobe. I think I have 2 that I really wear, but I would highly recommend striped ties. I think that they're very fresh and you can do a lot with them. And the third style of tie that I would recommend is actually my favorite, and that's what I wear probably 90% of the time. Not probably, that's what I wear 90% of the time. And I'm talking about foulard ties. Foulard is a French word, so I know a lot of times when I say people's like, what's that word you said? So foulard is a print, and it's like a small scale pattern that repeats itself. And the patterns are usually floral or geometric. So you're going to find a lot of diamond shapes, a lot of square shapes, a lot of circle shapes. And they come in so many different colors, man. And to me, those are the most beautiful ties that one can get. And they also come in a lot of different fabrics. So in the summer and the spring, I wear just regular silk. And in the fall and winter, I wear ancient madder. Ancient madder is also silk, but the colors are more muted. And it also has a chalky feel to it, which goes really, really well with heavier fabrics like tweed and flannel and corduroys. This is definitely my go-to tie. Because they have so many different colors, it's very easy to pair them with your pocket squares. And that's one thing about me. The way that my closet is set up is very easy for me to get dressed in the morning. And that's what I teach my students with my ground-up method framework. My man Mike said, shout out to Style Architect, he said the way that I put my outfits together, I can easily get dressed in the dark. It's hilarious, but it's true. And it's done like that for a reason. And foulard ties go a really long way. Most of them are probably going to be like three or 4 different colors. So it's easy to pair them with my pocket squares because with pocket squares, what you really want to do is to have them complement each other but not have them match. So you want to pair like a primary color from the tie to a secondary or third color in the pocket square. And being that foulard ties have so many colors, and it's very easy to establish what's the primary color, what's the secondary color, what's the third color, what's the fourth color. When it's time for you to pair them with your pocket square, it's going to be extremely easy. So my closet is set up in a way where most of my ties are going to work with most of my pocket squares. So I don't really have to give it much thought in the morning. So if I had to break it down, let's say you wanted to start your tie collection and you were going to get 10 ties, then I would say you want to get 5 foulards and you want to get 3 solid and you want to get 2 stripes. So those are the 3 style of ties that I think that every man should have. And as an honorable mention, I would say dotted ties would be my 4th option. I only have one of those in my closet, but the great thing about that tie is the oldest piece in my closet. I bought that tie in 2009. And the reason why I know that is because that's the tie that I wore when I proposed to my wife. And that was in October of 2009. And that was my first time wearing the tie. And somehow, even though back then, I had no idea what I was doing when it came to menswear. But somehow I got that tie right. It's a Ralph Lauren purple label tie. And the tie is actually purple with white dots. And that's the only piece in my wardrobe that survived the purge of 2015. Around 2006, I started wearing a suit. Around 2012, 2013, I realized I didn't know what I was doing. Then around 2015 is when I really started to put things together the right way. So I got rid of a bunch of stuff. And this is the only piece in my closet that I still have from that era when I was clueless about menswear. And I still wear it to this day, and I really love that tie. So dotted ties would be the fourth one if I had to pick a fourth. And what you have to look out for when it comes to dotted ties is to stay away from polka dots because you don't want the dots to be too big. You can do pin dots, which are a little bit smaller than regular dots, but you just don't want them to be too big because they're going to look kind of clownish at this point, and that's not what you want. Let me know which one is your favorite. Shoot me an email or something. My email is vr@chaseandrider.com. Or hit me up on Instagram at Chase and Rider or I'm Not a Gentleman podcast. I do have 2 accounts on there. I'm more active on the Chase and Rider, which is my main account. And let me know which one is your favorite, man. But those are the ties that I would recommend. Once again, ties are extremely, extremely important when it comes to your presentation. So you really can't go wrong with those ties that I was talking about. And I do understand, once again, that ties are expensive. Most of my ties are around the $125 price point. I know that's crazy expensive. You don't have to spend that much. I think good ties do cost, though, and start around maybe $70, $75. If you can't afford that, then thrifting would be my recommendation. And if you need help with thrifting, one of the homies, Style Jumper, I linked him in my last episode because I did speak about him then also, but I will link him also in the show notes of this episode. So definitely hit him up and he'll be able to work with you because I'm not really that sound when it comes to thrifting. I'm still learning about that. So my guy Style Jumper would definitely set you straight. So that was episode 23. Once again, the Michael Jordan episode of I'm Not a Gentleman. First episode of 2024 is going to be a wild ride. Appreciate you guys supporting the podcast. And, let's see what 2024 has in store for us. So thanks for checking out what I had to say about ties. And tune in again next week for another fire episode of I'm Not a Gentleman. Peace.
Back in that bag again. Whoa, yeah. Hey. Back in that.